ALMA is a unique telescope in the world. There are many observatory and telescope in the world, but ALMA is a very unique to reveal the cosmic origin.
El hito principal vino en 2019 cuando por fin se obtuvo la imagen, cuando se publicó la primera imagen del agujero negro.
Esta imagen que se logró obtener fue un suceso a nivel mundial y además de gran colaboración. Es la primera vez que logramos ver como humanidad qué es lo que era un agujero negro.
Entonces llega esta imagen y viene a probar una teoría que viene cautivando a astrónomos, astrofísicos desde hace mucho tiempo. Entonces para ellos fue la comprobación de algo con lo que ellos soñaban.
Pre-pandemic, in terms of what ALMA was working on, I mean, we had the black hole image from sort of March of the previous year. So in January and February, I was really thinking about how to implement the upgrade of ALMA over the next 5 or 10 years, basically.
En los meses de noviembre y diciembre habíamos tenido un desempeño sobresaliente. Hemos tenido muchas horas, el sistema se había comportado muy bien. Entonces veníamos optimistas, pensando en que bien vamos a poder completar lo que le habíamos prometido a la comunidad científica.
Bueno, en esa época nadie, ninguno acá, yo creo en el país ni nada, habíamos escuchado solamente de este virus, pero para nosotros era lejano todavía.
It was somewhere in the middle of March when the schools closed, and then it became really apparent that this was going to have a major impact on our lives here in Chile and the lives of all the staff at ALMA.
Habiendo un caso en Chile, esto se iba a diseminar rápidamente, sobre todo en personas que viajamos constantemente en avión, en buses y que estamos en contacto con muchas personas en los trayectos.
Es un ambiente cosmopolita, tenemos compañeros que son de otros países, entonces también nos empezamos a preocupar y luego fue empezar a ver la parte operativa, cómo nos iba a afectar acá en el observatorio.
Ya a mediados de marzo nosotros ya prácticamente supimos de que esto ya era una pandemia y de que era un inminente cierre del observatorio.
I remember the decision at March the 16th when the central management team meeting, when we discussed the need to shut down the observatory, and certainly very clear in my own mind was the safety and well-being of everybody at ALMA. And so it was a relatively straightforward step to say, I need to consider closing the observatory.
Y finalmente el 16 de marzo, me acuerdo yo, al menos yo bajé el 16, fue que las personas que hacíamos labores administrativas teníamos que abandonar el lugar y ya empezaron a hacer el cierre del observatorio.
El equipo que estaba en sitio en ese minuto en turno es quien tuvo que cerrar todo el recinto, 120 habitaciones que tuvieron que quedar cerradas, con todos sus sistemas apagados, sistemas de aire acondicionado, termos de agua caliente y el campamento que tenemos de soporte para nuestros colaboradores directos. Todo eso tuvo que quedar cerrado.
Con el pasar de los días, el staff de ALMA y contratistas se empezaba a retirar Y era bien, no sé si fue triste la palabra, pero el hecho de no saber si los vuelves a ver.
You know, I also kind of felt it too. I know, waving goodbye, the bus is leaving, and I, you know, went down with the first team in San Pedro. That was probably the biggest problem with the shutdown, was the human part, not the technical part.
Cuando me tocó pagar el último equipo, que era el que mantenía viva la conexión a internet, nos desconectamos del mundo. Quedamos aislados, sin telefonía.
Y nuestra comunicación dependía netamente de un teléfono satelital. Y eso yo creo que fue un hito bien impactante porque finalmente apagan todo y nos desconectamos del mundo.
El observatorio ALMA debió cerrar sus puertas debido a la pandemia. Hoy se encuentra vacío, solo los animales silvestres son sus visitas, pues el personal debió evacuar y un equipo de seguridad está a cargo de patrullar sus instalaciones.
Uno de los grandes problemas que nosotros encontramos en ALMA para poder mantenernos vivos bajo el esquema de pandemia era mantener la referencia de tiempo, que es este Maser, el reloj atómico de ALMA. Primero lo dejamos energizado con un banco de UPS, con batería, y aparte se conectó paneles fotovoltaicos.
Pero de repente los equipos fallaban, entonces tuvimos que ir a los 5.000 metros, buscar más paneles solares, armar un conjunto solar, por último hacer visitas, hacer inspección más que nada también.
Las primeras nevazones que hubieron aquí en San Pedro y viento fuerte, se hicieron equipos de trabajo donde tuve que trabajar junto con Nurikazu, con Stuart, que pensé que en realidad nunca iba a pasar algo así porque son los que están encargados del observatorio, pero junto con ellos estuvimos sellando la antena, estuvimos subiendo los 5.000 metros, preocupados de que no les pasara nada en el momento que no había nadie más, sin saber cuánto tiempo iba a pasar también.
The observatory shutdown was something that we'd never done, and when things are shut down for that long of a period without maintenance, it's the risk of how do you get them started back up.
Te encontráis con casi 150 personas y de un mes para otro te encontráis con prácticamente 4 o 5 personas. Entonces es como un sentimiento encontrado, es alguna soledad que al final igual es medio chocante.
Fue fuerte porque acá era un desierto, acá era un desolado. Tú no veías gente, se veían los animales que tú ves diariamente, los burros que los vemos todos los días, pero aparecieron animales que no los veíamos hace tiempo también, porque empezaron como a recuperar su espacio. Entonces empezamos a ver otro tipo de animales que sabemos que son de acá, pero que no bajaban a esta altura.
Parecía desierto. Entonces parecía que llevaba abandonado mucho tiempo, los vidrios sucios, los interiores con mucha tierra, polvo que se mete. Entonces parecía en realidad mucho más tiempo el que hubiera estado abandonado. Entonces era un sentimiento bien triste de ver esto tan desierto.
Es como que el tiempo se hubiese detenido, porque encontramos cosas que habíamos dejado en marzo, documentos, informes. Era volver el tiempo atrás, pero en otras condiciones.
El estar acá, el ver una tremenda instalación, una tremenda inversión de millones de dólares detenida por un virus, ¿no es cierto?, que está amenazando a la humanidad.
toda una aventura, la verdad, para nosotros como familia, para mí como trabajador de ALMA también, para mi familia también, el hacerse parte también de mi trabajo, el tener que respetar algunos horarios en donde tengo reuniones. Mi hijo que tiene 3 años y medio, que también le parece curioso y me va a ver y a veces aparece en reuniones, en pantalla. Y todos nos hemos hecho partícipe de las tareas de la casa y de las tareas también del observatorio. Y en ese sentido también hay tranquilidad.
Te amo, nos vemos mañana.
Nos vemos mañana.
So it was a mentally difficult time. People always thinking that their family, but also we need to concentrate our ALMA hardwares and job.
A lot of things happened during the pandemic that were hard. So for me, it was kind of the purpose was a bit gone for a while, because what I really wanted to know when I was a beginning student was how this all got here, and and a little bit of sort of where we came from as life, the fundamental building blocks of life. But for me, it was looking back over in this last year, there was kind of no real hope of answering that question.
Basically, we have not collected data since March, and it delays, the science that one does with ALMA. So, you get the data a year later than you normally would, and you can't make up that time. It's basically lost time on the sky.
So in this science, we really need to catch it in the act of happening. A star exploding, gamma ray bursts, things like that. So these events that happened during the past year when we couldn't observe them, we've lost that science maybe forever. Of course, there's other things like comets that don't come around very often. And also there was a very famous star that dimmed dramatically, Betelgeuse, during this time. We couldn't observe with ALMA. So unfortunately, this type of science, we can't just go back and get next year.
It's a little eerie being here, seeing the telescopes standing silently here at 5,000 meters, like silent soldiers on the altiplano. It's a little strange, very eerie, and I have to say I'm really looking forward to the day when we can power them back up again and make them do their thing. I'm looking forward to that day immensely.
Bueno, después de prácticamente 7 meses nos llega la información que el observatorio sí se va a abrir y se va a hacer a andar. Tuvimos que preparar protocolos en distintos temas, desde el ingreso de las personas al sitio, cómo iba a ser el chequeo, cómo iba a ser el trabajo en la antena.
Cuando dijeron vamos a abrir, va a empezar a llegar gente, viene esa chispa de esperanza, viene esa chispa de que vamos a volver a levantar esto.
Para nuestro equipo, el día más importante del retorno a operaciones fue el día 6 de octubre del año pasado, cuando después de 8 meses sin tener nuestra energía generada, pusimos en operación las turbinas y ese fue el hito que marcó el retorno a operaciones de todo el observatorio.
Estamos en este momento en lo que es la Power Plant, en la planta de energía que tiene acá el observatorio. Es el corazón, digamos, de todo el observatorio, diría yo. Si no logramos generar con las turbinas, no tenemos cómo poder alimentar las antenas.
En ese momento era un sentimiento de satisfacción, de alegría, de que una vez arrancada la turbina el retorno era inminente.
Este transformador está energizado desde abajo, desde las turbinas. Adelante, Dinko, procede a energizar la antena de A48, por favor.
Antena de A48 energizada. Excelente, Dinko, muchas gracias. Primera antena energizada de 66, misión cumplida.
Hoy día estamos todavía en un proceso de recuperación de las antenas para poder retomar las observaciones y que esto siga de manera normal para quienes tienen puesto en esta institución, ¿no es cierto?, mucha expectativa.
Pero ha sido un trabajo titánico de un grupo de gente que no se ve, o sea, nosotros somos el grupo que está acá, pero vemos que está todo Haití en Santiago tratando de levantarnos los sistemas para que podamos tener conexión. La gente del aseo, la gente de los contratistas que nos están dando una mano.
No me imagino otra forma de hacer este retorno. Ha sido tan cuidado.
At the moment, the team are preparing the axles. We're going to take the transporter out for the first time. Excellent. We'll take the transporter out of the hangar and do another check for any leaks to see if any have developed during the first run. So it's quite an exciting time. Patricio here, one of the transporter operators, and he's using the transporter remote controller to operate. This machine has a lot of complex functions.
La verdad que los riesgos no se conocen porque nunca había estado tanto tiempo detenido. El proceso de volver para dar inicio al encendido fue complejo desde la casa, ya que tuvimos que hacer como una programación exhaustiva de cómo hacer el encendido de los equipos. Y creo que hicimos un buen trabajo en donde no costó dar inicio a las máquinas y en más de una semana ya tenemos los dos equipos funcionando perfectamente.
I would use two words if I had to. The first one is maybe not all that surprising. I would say survival as a technical telescope, as a entity, as an observatory, and also as the people of ALMA, just making it through this. I think though in the last few months I've started thinking more about kind of a rebirth or revival is the other word I would use to define this last kind of 4 or 5 months with a similar feeling amongst the staff. So everybody's really motivated to get it back going, and the same as we were breaking new ground with construction. I get the same feeling of that now. So I think it was survival from March to October, and it's been rebirth from October till now.
Cuando comida acá está, nosotros muy contentos volver a casa. Muchas gracias a todos. Ahora este diciembre está más gente. Este turno está total 70 personas. Todavía más, casi mitad. Pero ahora nosotros está con el management team está todo muy contento, todo cara está feliz. So, hoy día está, primero día está energizada de antena arriba, 5 antenas. So, ojalá que próxima semana movimiento de antena.
I can't believe what an amazing amount of work that's come into bringing this telescope back. It's been such a difficult year, so I know that we can do whatever we set our minds to. So thank you very, very much. Let's go for it and have a really good 2021 and see what we can do in the next few months.
Si bien fue muy complejo el periodo de cierre del observatorio, nos hizo ver que como equipo completo ALMA, todas las áreas, el nivel de compromiso es bastante alto. Todos hemos estado en base al mejor esfuerzo, trabajando constantemente para el retorno a operaciones una vez dadas las condiciones.
This whole experience of the observatory shut down, the challenges of keeping the observatory safe, and also at the same time thinking about how we get the observatory back to operating again. It's been a huge puzzle. It's required the fantastic efforts of so many people across ALMA. And I have to say, I can't imagine of working with a better team of people to figure out the challenge of bringing ALMA back to doing science again.
Ojalá que podamos retomar las observaciones. Estamos todos ansiosos, todos estamos acá por un único objetivo, que es poder brindar datos astronómicos a la comunidad, datos científicos, y ya llevamos un año sin poder hacerlo, así que ojalá que esta noche lo podamos lograr. En esta etapa del retorno a operaciones, estamos ofreciendo a la comunidad un número reducido de antenas, de aproximadamente 32, y varios investigadores accedieron a esas condiciones, así que están agradecidos de que les podamos brindar datos aún con menor cantidad de antenas.
Estamos contentos, es la culminación de un proceso larguísimo que se inició en octubre, casi un año exacto desde que tuvimos que cerrar el observatorio.
Creo que esto demuestra la emoción de todo el equipo dentro de ALMA. O sea, solo nos faltaban 17 horas para haber estado parados un año completo, lo que es terrible para todos. Y creo que ha sido un año muy intenso los últimos meses de preparación para la vuelta de operaciones, y sin olvidar nunca los más de 4 meses de trabajo de la gente arriba en el sitio para levantar el instrumento. Emocionante para todos. Lo hemos conseguido, lo hemos conseguido.
I think this pandemic makes all ALMA team strengths all collaborations and also care each other. So indeed we are become a great team, and everybody indeed want to go back to the operation and back to the sky.
Ninguno en la vida, ¿no? Pensamos vivir
una pandemia en que nos dejara absolutamente hacinados en un lugar, escondidos en un lugar por tanto tiempo y alejados también de nuestro trabajo, que ALMA para todos sigue siendo otra familia.
Tú aquí llegas a ALMA y te vienes a interactuar con otro grupo de personas durante varios días. Entonces, en ese sentido, conocemos una segunda familia y por lo mismo tenemos que cuidarnos.
Ser parte de esta gran familia de ALMA y para lograr un conjunto de lograr nuevas observaciones, nuevos descubrimientos.
Tiene que seguir y las proyecciones son tremendas. Yo creo que ya nos dimos cuenta que somos capaces de tanto de parar un observatorio como también volverlo a echar a andar.
ALMA is still the most powerful observatory millimeter wave interferometer in the world, and so that's not going to change. And so when we get back up, hopefully soon, we're still going to be producing great science.
Is the premiere of the documentary ALMA, the Rebirth of a Giant. I hope you enjoyed this production of the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array. Thanks to all for you for participating in this premiere, all the audience that is here now with us. And thanks also to the ALMA partners, the European Southern Observatory, the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, and the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan, who are cross-posting this transmission with ALMA. We can see that this documentary is triggering many questions and comments from all of you, which is great, because we are now starting a roundtable with some of the participants of this documentary and also involved in the whole feat that has been the ALMA shutdown and its return to operations. Let me introduce you to Sean Doherty, the ALMA director. Hi, Sean. Stuart Corder, the ALMA deputy director. Hi, Stuart. John Carpenter, the observatory scientist. Ivan Lopez, safety manager from the site. Jorge Ibsen, computing department's head. Hi, Jorge. Sergio Martin, Operations Performance Group Manager. Hi, Sergio. And finally, the family of Héctor Alarcón. Hi, Héctor, Array Operations Group Manager from San Pedro de Atacama. Thanks so much for participating in this roundtable. Let's start. Let me start with the director, Sean. We're going to start with you. I would like to know, how do you feel after watching this documentary, which is a tiny summary of what ALMA has lived in this last year or more? Please.
Certainly. Thank you, Valeria. I think I'm going to confess that it makes me very emotional. It's been a very long journey, and I think it's a fantastic record. I think of the state of the various stages of that journey that we've made over the past 14 or so months. I think the other thing that I really get a strong feeling of when I watch the movie is this overwhelming sense of belonging to a family of an amazing and really diverse group of people working towards a common goal and addressing all the obstacles we met along the way, some of them very challenging, I see hope and excitement at dealing with those challenges and at the prospect of working together and bringing ALMA back into operation. It makes me feel so proud and so happy that I'm fortunate to work with such an amazing group of people who are the ALMA staff. I think it's a really it's a fantastic record of that journey and the people who made it.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for your comments, and I'm also watching many comments from the public, which is beautiful. We also have some former participants of this institution, like Violette in Pelliceri. Hello, Violette. Good to hear from you. And some questions from people asking how can if the whole observatory can be remotely activated, and maybe Sergio, you can talk about that.
Well, yes, luckily, right before the pandemic started, we had made a tremendous effort to put together a control room down in Santiago, right? We were planning to start remotely operating from Santiago, and that was absolutely timely. I mean, thanks to that, we have been able to start the operations with a scientific crew down from Santiago, which is also, minimizing the number of people that you need to move in this pandemic condition. So that was kind of pushing us to quickly finish up this putting together of the control room, and that has been another successful story from this coming up to life.
Yeah, we were really lucky indeed of being able to control the observatory from so far away in this situation, avoiding more trips and from the astronomers. So congratulations for that accomplishment. And maybe we can ask John about what did we miss in the meanwhile? I mean, are important things that we couldn't see or expect?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of impacts. Obviously, we lose a year on the sky, and a lot of ALMA observations, they're based on previous observations, and so you lose that entire momentum for a year. There's also some unique objects that were discussed in the video, gamma ray bursts, Betelgeuse, supernova that go off, which you really can't catch again. I think another more subtle aspect is that there's a lot of students who are trying to get their degrees based on ALMA data, and their plans are sort of on a hiatus for a year, and so either they have to delay or they come up with other plans, and so that's a more subtle impact of this delay of ALMA on others. So.
Yeah, that's true. Hector, can you?
Yeah, before to follow, I just want to say hello. I wanted to share the
beautiful
view here. You see, Cantabur is completely snowed. It was very fun. It was very nice. Beautiful documental. So we enjoyed it, even though these guys don't speak English. For them was very nice. So thank you.
At least
we
they saw.
We are leaving now, so we just wanted to say thank you and see you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Hector, for participating in this with your family. Thank you for opening your house for this documentary, which is really important because it was part of this process. I mean, working from home all this period. And let me come back to ask Stuart, for example. You were mentioned there, covering the antennas in the middle, I mean, with the snow, with all sort of people trying to do your best. How difficult, how many risks did we had in this period of time that we cannot show because it's impossible show everything in the documentary?
Well, I mean, I think one of the most challenging thing was when we started, we didn't know how long we would be in the shutdown, right? So we started and we was like, oh, maybe this is going to blow over pretty quickly because, there had been some, there was this, SARS and MERS and, these things. It was like, maybe this is just going to be like 2 or 3 months and then we're going to be back. But when early May hit, we started thinking, the winter is actually coming, and usually we do lots of things to protect the antennas, but also the antennas are on normally, and so they're blowing air out of various places and vents, and those were all off. So there were a lot of ways in which snow and ice and dust could get into the antennas that normally it wouldn't, and we had no idea how damaging that might be. So with the regional partners, we quickly had teams get together and define what needed to be done to protect things. But it was basically Ivan's team on site and a couple of other people available, and we did call in some of Norikazu's folks for help, but it was basically 6 or 8 people doing what 30 would normally be doing over the course of many days, and we had to get it done as quickly as we could because the storms were coming. I think that once we got through that period, I'm not sure that it was mostly kind of a wait and see after that, because we did all that we could do without heavy equipment and moving things around up top. We did have to, come up with a plan for monitoring the turbine and figuring out, what rotations and changes had to be made on a monthly basis, because otherwise that would also wear in ways that it wasn't ever intended to. So I think those were probably the 2 biggest unexpected things that we had to deal with because it was longer than anticipated.
Exactly. Well, there's so many comments from different places, from Mexico to La Serena, from everywhere. I also want to say hello to our former director, Thijs de Grauw, who is also participating in the chat. So it's so beautiful to see all the ALMA family involved in this documentary and roundtable here. Let me come back now to Ivan, because he was in charge of the caretaker team. That was the most difficult part. In fact, it was so difficult that the documentary really don't cover that part as it should, because it was really tough. And I would love to hear some from you, Ivan, about how tough was it and why.
Everything was tough. And as Stuart said, we didn't know what was going on. It's very hard when, like, our safety department, we're in charge of different things from the observatory, and we have protocols for everything. We know if something happens, we're going to do this. In case of an emergency, we will do this. This wasn't a world, a universal, if you want to call it like that, emergency that no one knew what was going on. So we had to come with protocols, with things like, we didn't know. No one had the truth of what was going on. So we had to be adapting all the time. And it was something that, it took, mental stress, if you want to call it like that, from everyone. And we had to learn things that we never did before. As Stuart said, from a team that was in charge of, making protocols, making sure everything is done, to actually doing things with our hands, doing things for the maser, for the antennas, for the observatory. We had to improvise, and we had a great team. We learned a lot. And one of the things that it was very important is that we got to realize how important every single person in ALMA is after doing their job at least once during the caretaker team era. We did from cleaning, we did welding, we did electrician work, piping work. As Stuart said, winter came in, and everything, it's the driest place on earth, but we get snow and rain. We had the guys from Jorge helping us from Santiago. He had a team every night. And the worst thing was at 2 o'clock in the morning when the guard said, the lights of the maser, we don't see them. So we had to run from San Pedro at 2 o'clock in the morning with 2 trucks, all the way to the mountain to see what was going on. And the improvisation and making everything so safe for everyone has been the biggest challenge that we have, and it hasn't stopped. Everything is changing now. We have vaccines, but vaccine is not the answer. We have, PPE, we have everything. So it has been a very...
And we have storms.
Oh, we just had 3 days of storms that, it's another challenge that,
Exactly.
So it's a learning process that hasn't stopped.
It's fun, isn't it?
Now we see it as fun because we have really great memories, but at the moment,
it was a challenge that, it's worth, the video, has very good images and of everything like that, but the feeling and the challenge of our guys, it's amazing from everyone.
Thanks so much also to the whole safety team because of that. And another kind of invisible department in this documentary and for the whole public is computing. So I would love to hear from you, Jorge, please, about how challenging was for all your department. I mean, you couldn't stop. I mean, never before we needed you guys so much as now, the whole year. So thanks also for the whole team. And I would love to hear some anecdotes or difficulties that you have lived this year.
Yeah, I think, can you hear me well? Yes, I assume yes.
Yes.
So this has been a very challenging year plus, is because there were so many things that we didn't know and we still needed to manage. So it has been 14 months of a very long training on crisis management and how to be flexible and react and offer different solutions, even if you don't know at first what the solution was. In the case of computing that has 3 groups, we had to redeploy, we had to reinstall, we had to provide services in a way the system was not designed for. So all of a sudden, we didn't have the OSF, where a lot of things are installed and provide some services. So we shut that down and we had to redeploy, reinstall many services in Santiago with all the other things in the pandemics that were going along. So there were mobility restrictions, there was fear, there was a lot of misunderstanding because we were learning by doing all the details and subtleties of the different mobility restrictions we had in the areas. So there was another caretaker team in Santiago taking care of the core services in computing that were enable all the rest of ALMA to be able to work. And I think one of the most interesting things during this period, because I agree, I mean, we didn't have less work, if anything, we had more work, but it was very rewarding to see that our work had an immediate impact in the life of our staff. And I think the most important portion of it is that the fact that we got a little bit unnoticed is a testimony that we did our job well, because you usually remember the IT teams or the software guys when something doesn't work. In this particular case, things were working at some level that you just took for granted that these services were there. And it was good, because that not only enabled the support we needed for the return to operations team, but also we enabled a lot of additional work coming from people that were stuck at home and still wanted to contribute and do something. So there were many other things that unfortunately is too many to show in the documentary, but there were a lot of work and a lot of progress in many other areas, taking the opportunity to rethink things in a different way.
Thanks, Jorge. That's true. There's a comment from Robert Corder. Who's that, Stuart? Is your family member?
That would be my dad's older brother. Yes.
Okay, so let's answer his question. He's about the drone. Who got the drone? There's nobody from the staff, but it's XCAM. It's a company. Ariel did a great job, and also we work with Vectorial. So thanks both producers for doing this excellent work. Let's come back again to Sean, please. Questions about why it takes so long for ALMA, because other observatories were working before us, and also questions about how many antennas are we using now. So if you can tell a little more, please.
Sure. So appreciate that ALMA is it's an isolated site. I mean, we generate our own power. We have our own water system and sewer system. And when you shut those things down, it takes some time to bring them back again. And the other challenge, of course, is because we're remote, we have to, all our staff, there are a handful of staff that live in San Pedro, but mostly live elsewhere in Chile. And so we have to get people to site. So all those challenges put together mean it's not something where it's not an instance where you can just throw a switch and hey presto, it's all back working again. It's a fairly long process of first getting the power station back operating again, and given the fact that we were shut down for something around 6 months, there are all kinds of surprises in terms of restarting equipment like that. They're complex pieces of equipment, and so so you have to get the city services, if you like, back up and running again, and that takes of order a month. And then appreciate that we'd been away for 6 months, and one of the things that I noticed when I went to the site during that 6 months of shutdown was it's amazing just how everything was left as almost the way it was when we left. And an awful lot of dust had gotten into the buildings and into the laboratories. And so all that needed cleaning up and bringing back to a standard where it was safe for people to come back to site. So it took about a month to get the site where we could be back there living again. And then, of course, the whole challenge of getting the telescope, the systems at 5,000 meters working again, the building, and then the telescopes. And there are 66 antennas that we have to bring back to life. And that process it's time consuming, and it has to be done. It has to be done safely, and it has to be done very methodically. And the teams that went about designing the process for doing all those steps did a remarkable job when you consider that we put those plans together sometime about a year ago, and to the largest part, we followed them exactly as they were written down over a year ago, with very few reasons to change. So clearly, a lot of good thought went into that process. But it's just it's not a case of turning one system on and away you go. There are just so many different systems that have to be brought back. And many of them are quite complex systems, and so it just takes a lot of time. And the fact there are 66, antennas. I mean, it's so different to say a single antenna case.
How many antennas are being used now?
So we started science operations again when we had a minimum of 32, I do believe. But and typically when in regular operations we try and have more than 41 antennas available in the main array. And in the past month we've been operating with numbers closer to 50. So the engineering staff and all the support staff have done an amazing job of getting all those antennas back to full working standard again. Of course, there are still some challenges to be addressed in some systems, but we're working our way through that punch list step by step, and it'll be. I think it'll be some time before we're have every system, every receiver band, every antenna available, but we are getting there slowly but surely.
Thanks, Sean. We have 5 minutes left. I would like to hear from Stuart about the people. I mean, are we back on site with all our staff or not yet?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on how you count, I guess. It's the same as to with Sean with the antennas. It depends on what you count as an antenna functioning or not.
I say 5 minutes.
No, but I mean, in terms of numbers, we typically have, a light day is 160 and a heavy day is kind of 200 on site. That's the normal times numbers. In the last 2 shifts, we've been at about 100, but we have 20 people still operating from San Pedro in isolated social bubbles. So, we really call it about 120 total. We're trying to get up soon to 140, and that's kind of what we can cap at with the existing protocol. So not quite to a normal light day on site and regular times, but close to it. So that means we should be able to do most kind of regular things within the next month or two,
But special things that, upgrades, things of that nature will probably take some more time because of pandemic operations will still be going on probably for another few months at least.
Who knows? But I can see that there's an important collaborator that is in. There's people asking for him. It's Almito, the dog. So can you say, Ivan, please, if how is he doing?
Oh, Almito is in pretty good spirits. He was never left alone. We had the guards, and we were in the caretaker team, and we provided the best food that he could get. And to be honest, sometimes for the caretaker team, he had better food than we did. Having Maruchan and army rations for a while, what the leftovers that he was getting, they really looked really good. But he's in good spirits. The vet has come to check him twice in the past, so he's doing really well.
Yeah, he gained some weight, I think, because he didn't have as many cars to go out and greet on a daily basis. So that's probably the biggest problem.
Yeah, everybody did, I guess. And also, we haven't mentioned even about if there's any case of COVID at the site yet.
So far, we have been doing really well our job. We are prepared for our programs and protocols are set that we think that we will have a COVID case. And so far we have been very, very strict and we have been able to say that we have no cases generated by the site. However, we did have a few cases that came in and they were caught through the PCR test policy that we have. We have caught around 24 people before they came to site. 2 arrived on different the means of transportation that we have coming to the site. We managed to get isolated 2 people with COVID, and that has been it. But from our side, and during what we have been working, we have had no cases at all so far.
Thanks. And John, what about we're gonna see a lack of discoveries or press releases from ALMA because of this shutdown? Are we gonna have to wait longer?
Well, there's still a lot of data that's out there, and I think this is actually giving an opportunity for people to get caught up on all the data they have. So I still think the discoveries are going to be coming in at a healthy rate. So we're still looking forward to, over the next year what the new stuff that's coming.
Thanks, John. And I guess the very last, I don't know, Jorge, if you can say, what would you say, a personal learning of this process that you could mention? That's one of the beautiful questions we have received.
I think what has been the biggest lessons learned for me, at least, so I'm going to take this as a personal question, is that there is a lot more attention to the balancing between work and life. For many people, work invaded home, and that is a major challenge by itself. So we were all struggling pretty much with the same problems, and we learn how to balance this better. This is my take. And so we're able to do both things, your professional self and your personal self at the same time. And this is actually pretty good because you bring together these 2 things into the one person you are. So I think that has been the biggest lessons learned from my side.
Thanks, Jorge. And the very, very, very last question for Sergio, it's about the same. You have little kids. Are you a new person after this experience? Or have you learned anything to share?
Well, we have to catch up with our lives and with our work here at home, right? I had already an instance in which my daughter appeared live on a TV show, right? And but that's okay, right? It's totally fine. But somehow we learn that we are not kind of isolated in our astronomy bubble, right? We prepare all the observations, we execute all the observations, and if our mindset is we are going to operate 365 days a year. You never take into account these kind of things, right? And these kind of things happen, and I think we had to react accordingly, and it was, it has been a hard but really telling experience.
That's true. And one more thing to add is that if usually all of you or us work on shifts, in this case, all of us work together. There were no shifts because we couldn't go. So it was a big family, and that's also shown on the documentary. So thanks for that to all my family, ALMA family. Thanks so much for participating in this documentary, in this roundtable. After the documentary, we're going to have a Spanish version of it right now. So continue with us very soon. Thanks. Ciao, ciao.